Welcome back to another episode of the Hormone Hub podcast, where we talk all things perimenopause, menopause, and have the conversations no one else is having. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hormone Hub podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Pinwell, and today it's going to be a great conversation on lots of levels. So we have Christine Innes as our guest today, and Christine's a visionary entrepreneur, storyteller, and the CEO and founder of the Corporate Escapists, which I encourage you all to check out. I saw the first edition that I've seen, came across my desk after I met up with Christine, and highly recommend everyone looking that up. We'll put all the details in the show notes as well, but diving into that. So the Corporate Escapists is a renowned media company that harnesses the power of storytelling to help entrepreneurs attract their clients. Now, with a deep understanding of the profound impact stories have on human connection and also consumer behaviour, Christine's revolutionised the way entrepreneurs communicate and sell their products and services. And today we are actually talking stories, but we are talking real life stories, and we're going to talk. So Christine and I connected, I think, initially through entrepreneurs, and we connected on that level, but then we had a deeper conversation about hormones, as you do. We got on to Christine's experience with endometriosis and her own journey through perimenopause and menopause. So we are going to dive into that today because it is quite the story. So welcome, Christine. It's amazing to have you here. And welcome to the Hormone Hub.
Thank you, beautiful. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So give us a bit about your background because, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Like where to start? So I was a young mum. So I was 19 when I had my son. So it was like 2 weeks before my 20th birthday. So it was like the best birthday present ever. But I literally 6 months beforehand got told I could never have children. The likelihood was and I remember the doctor calling me up going, "Oh, you need to come in, bring your husband in. Something's come up in the test results." And I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, like something's wrong." And then she sat us down going, "Oh, look, I'm really sorry. We've made a mistake, but you're pregnant." I'm like, "Okay, no worries. Let's do with that." But prior to that, the word endometriosis actually never even came across because I had so many tests in so many specialists because I had painful periods, intercourse, all that sort of stuff, which was really difficult. But back then, I'm talking, this is the 90s. So it actually wasn't even talked about or even suggested that that's what you had.
Yeah.
So my journey started from a complete unknown to now understanding what I have. My endometriosis has developed to it's adhered to the bowel, and now going through the process whether or not I have a hysterectomy with it. So the journey's been really long with it, but it has, I guess, in a way made me realize that as women, we need to listen to our bodies so much more. And when we know something's not right, we know something's not right. So it's been that process has been quite a journey for me. And then obviously you incorporate, career, you incorporate being an entrepreneur, you incorporate now being a grandma, all that sort of stuff into it. It has been a crazy whirlwind ride.
Yeah, I bet. And that's the thing, back in the 90s, there was no talk of endometriosis. And I sort of speak to a lot of women and they look back at their early experiences. So as a teenager, when their period started, and because their mum had had the same, and because their aunties had the same, and because their sister had the same, it was kind of just never questioned whether this was okay and whether this was normal. It was just these groups of women just sort of put up with this pain every month. When you think of it now, and even now, it can still take women years to get diagnosed as well. So what did it look like for you in sort of your teenage years?
Yeah, so I started my cycle really late. So I was late 15 when I first, so it was different. And nobody in my family had any issues with their cycle. So when I started saying they're so painful, I would some days need to be in bed, or you would need to change every hour or so. None of that was common for my family.
Yeah.
So it was almost like going, oh, stop worrying about it. Like we all have it,
Yeah. Don't
because
exaggerate.
it
Yeah.
wasn't, because
Yeah.
talking about your cycle actually was not common back then
No, not at all.
either.
No.
So it was really an interesting time, and it took me until my late 20s for the doctor to actually let me know that you have endometriosis. And then I was also diagnosed with PCOS as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's it. We weren't talking about our periods with our friends either. So you couldn't even sort of
No.
benchmark yourself against what all your girlfriends were experiencing either.
No.
Which is such a shame. And I love the fact that my daughter and her friends, like they're having the conversations now and it's normalized so much more.
Yeah.
So then how did that impact you at work? Because it's hard when you've got something going on in the background that you can't talk about.
Yeah. Look, there was days where I couldn't even go to work. I didn't realize the other effects. So it's not just like a heavy cycle. It is, the fatigue, which I still suffer from. It's the tiredness. It's the moods. Like there's so much more to it that, I wasn't aware of. So that I was wondering, why am I so tired all the time? My iron levels were fine. Like, the doctors were going, oh, it's just in your head. Like, get over it. You'll be fine. Yeah. So, there were days that, I would, need to be in bed because I was in crippling pain with it as well. And, I was, even early on, I'd always climbed that corporate ladder. So I was working in management, pretty much right from the get-go. So, not this working from home was ever mentioned back then. So if you had a day off, you then needed to really put in the hours afterwards to sort of make up for your day off.
Yes. Yeah. So there's that continual sort of catch up and also too, like not wanting to look incompetent or not wanting to look, that despite the fact that, you've got a debilitating chronic condition going on in the background. So, yeah. All right. And then sort of where is it now? So now that you're on your sort of perimenopause journey, how's it sort of impacting like month to month, day to day now?
Look, I made the decision to go down the route of having the depot injection just to stop it all because it was so painful. And I was already at that stage where I didn't want to have any more children. Like I'd already made that decision. My son's all growing up. As I said, I've got grandkids. So like I was done and dusted. So I was good.
I say that blew me away when Christine said grandkids because like looking at her on Zoom, she looks about 30 years old. I'm like, what? You've got grandchildren?
You're amazing. Thank you. But yeah, so like that was a decision that I made, and I made it because, it was just affecting so many different things of my life. But in saying that, I still have like the fatigue. I still have, the imbalance, I guess, like with your moods can go up and down as well. And you can have, you still have a flare up regardless of whether or not you're still having a cycle. And it's really interesting that we're having it now because I'm having a flare up like this week because I am like extremely tired, need to sleep, all that sort of stuff.
And that's the thing, like you could still, our bodies still are cyclical, like regardless. So even post-menopause, we're still cyclical. So we have that, we think, break it down, we've got that blood sugar cycle. So we eat, our insulin's released, everything comes down again. We've got our 24-hour circadian rhythm. So we wake up, we go to sleep, ideally, in that cycle. And we still have our full weekly cycle, regardless. We're not robots. And I think this is something I think we need to be having more conversations about is we don't have an even hormonal platform. We've got cortisol, we've got insulin, we've got melatonin, we've got, all of these things, as well as our estrogen and progesterone that are regulating these cycles within our bodies. So, so 100%, there's still a cycle.
Yeah. And I feel it. I really, the low energy is probably the biggest thing for me. And with having the PCOS, I will still sometimes get a cyst and you can feel it when it bursts. Like I know I've really learned to listen to my body and to know when it's not at the optimum that it could be as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, well done. And I think sometimes we're forced into having that awareness of our body. And I think the more you're impacted, for the best part of your life, really, the more you're impacted by your hormones and your cycle, the more you tend to be in tune with it. Whereas, I think it's such a shame that we're not taught. And again, I hope that's something that's changing, that we're taught how to tune into those cycles. So also too, we can give ourselves a bit of slack and be sort of kind to ourselves and go, you know what, there's a period where it's okay to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and not push through. And then throughout our cycle, we are going to be more productive, more creative, more energized to do interviews and connect and create and, build our businesses. And then there's days where it's just a solid no. And I think listening in and tuning into that will do us all a lot of favors.
Certainly does.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is you just need to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And that took me a long time because it was, you're going for this career, you're building that, you're a young mum, you've got to do it all.
Yeah.
And yet you've got all these other things happening, which I didn't know about to really understand. So you just kept pushing through it. And I don't know whether or not the pushing through, helped it or hindered the process later down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. We were taught to soldier on and push through. But at the end of the day, it doesn't do us any favours by any means. Hello, I see you there, juggling work, family, life, all while navigating perimenopause and menopause. But guess what? Maybe it's time to break up with the hustle and grind. Going on a retreat is more than just about a vacation. It's an investment in your well-being and a step towards a happier, healthier you. So take a moment, consider the benefits of a retreat and give yourself the gift of rejuvenation and self-care. Self-care is all about giving the best of you, not what's left of you. I want you to save $500 now, jump in for the Reignite You Retreat. We're running in Bali in April 2024 and October 2024. And yes, we sure do have payment plans available. See you there. Okay. Now, so what's sort of next in your journey? What's the next step for you in terms of your hormones and...
Oh, perimenopause. What a journey that is. It's really interesting. I was saying to you that I could feel all these different things are happening. I'm waking up multiple times during the night. I would wake up in a pool of sweat. I'd literally, my dog sleeps next to me and I have to push her away because I'm just so thank goodness I don't have a partner at the moment because they'd be get away from me, move away. And it is I know the thinning of the hair, there's all these things that are happening. And I went to the doctor and I said, look, this is what's happening. And they did the blood test and she goes, only one of your hormones is slightly changed. So I don't think you're going through it. And it's really interesting, the doctor's saying, I don't think you're going through it. However, my body and my natural instinct is telling me you are going through it. There's changes happening and not to ignore it as well. So that's the next fun thing to start to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's the thing, it's every woman will have a different experience, but I think the things that definitely show up are the fatigue, night sweats, sort of itchy skin for some women, and the brain fog as well, which can be debilitating, particularly, in the workplace, and particularly if you are in a corporate job or are running your own business, you've got a team, you've got clients, you've also then got to deal with running a family at home and all the things that life throws at us as well. So fun time. So watch this space.
Exactly. So I must admit, learning more about my body has really made me be more aware, to just go, well, just because the doctors say one thing, your body, so you really need to either push back on it or to just look at alternatives, or sometimes it may not be the right doctor to actually see as well, because that might not be their specialty for them to understand. And that's really what I learned with endometriosis. It took me quite a few specialists to find a really great specialist, and for him to go, okay, well, we're going to go in, we're going to remove the endometriosis. And I had that done multiple times.
Yep.
But then he even said to me, he goes, look, I can go in and remove it, but now you're getting the scar tissue. It's adhering to your bowel. So it's actually going to do more damage for me to go in.
Yeah.
So having a doctor who actually says that to you, that's really what you need to find, opposed to someone just going, oh, we'll just go in and do that. You'll be right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. And that's, like you sort of hear the term, surgeons like surgery. So, but it's also finding someone who will look at you objectively and sort of say, actually, it's not going to be in your favor.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
what sort of things do you do to help you sort of navigate some of the changes with perimenopause?
Coffee. That's it.
Amen, sister.
It really, the biggest thing for me is that if I need to have a nap during the day, I will have a nap. And I now just say I need my nanny naps. Like, I just need to have like 20 minutes just to sort of sit down, recharge, because like you're saying, like the brain fog, like I will get, there's certain peaks during the day where I'm like really on point, and I know that is my optimum time to work. But if I need to, in the afternoons, have some downtime, or, just get fresh air, that I find is probably the most things that I'm sort of listening to, like going, I can't keep pushing through anymore.
Yeah.
My body just does not allow it to do. And even if you push through and you think, oh, I'm just going to make myself super tired, you're going to have a good night's sleep. You don't. You actually have a worse night's sleep as well. So it's literally like calming the brain down as well. That's probably one of the biggest things for me. And just really listening like to the times where my body is at the peak, and knowing that I'm going to be able to work. Like Sunday, I took the whole day off, and I very rarely do that, but I just knew that I needed to rest. I just needed to, lay down, rest, take it nice and gentle throughout the day, because if I didn't, there's like a snowball effect that would have happened during the week as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Look, this has been great. And I would, because I love it so much, can you, like, we're going totally off tangent here, so give us a little sort of insight into the Corporate Escapists.
The Corporate Escapists all started, so I had my not-so-gracious exit back in 2015. So like I said, I was climbing that corporate ladder, and I was diagnosed with 2 life-changing illnesses within that year. So I was diagnosed with adult asthma and also a heart condition within 10 days of each other.
Wow.
I then realized I was in a toxic marriage. I left that marriage and also had to file for bankruptcy all within that year. So now I see it as the absolute best thing that happened to me. But going through it at the time, I had what I call my pity party for the next couple of years, which is the poor me, why me, everything's happening to me. But learning about the fact that the key thing was the identity. I was so attached to my job title, because I had worked since I was 14 doing part-time at school. I graduated grade 12 at 16. I literally went straight into corporate. And then, I had very high, demand jobs and in management. So after 22
with a baby.
Years, he was all growing up when this all happened. Thank goodness he was like 17 when it happened.
Yeah.
So that was a blessing in disguise. Yeah. So, I didn't have to, I could just focus on myself with, healing. But it made me realize that I didn't know who I was without my job title. And during those few years, I really discovered it was because if somebody asked me a question, I'd been living interstate for about 10 years. I come back, seen family, and the question was, well, what are you doing now? I could not answer it because I didn't have a job. And it was the first time I had 3 months off when I had my son and went back to work full time. So I'd never not worked, and not to have had a job, it made me realize I didn't know who I was. And I was, blessed to have time to be able to work out who I was, what I wanted to be, all the things that I wanted to do, and then went on a huge personal development journey. And then people started to notice, and I started in networking groups, and this girl just asked me, can I interview you? And I said yes. And first time I've ever been interviewed, and sweat was pouring off me everywhere because I was so nervous. And that actually birthed the Corporate Escapists, because I had people reach out to me, say, you inspire me to share my story. And then we started talking about the power of owning your story and learning to use your story. And you don't need to share it with the world like I do, but it's more the fact that when you own your story, you take away the shame and guilt that you've been living with anything that's been happening with you. And the shame and guilt actually allows your body to heal. So I was able to heal my heart condition. The doctors now say, oh, you never had it in the first place, but you know how that you've been able to heal it. And there's so many different things that have happened, and I learned the power of stories and been able to turn that into a global company and get to work with people all around the world to show them how not only to own their story personally through coaching, but also business owners, in why you need to be sharing your why for you to attract your ideal clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important, because at some point we've all had, what we deem to be a failure, but it's not really a failure. But with that comes, the shame and the guilt of, we hang on to that failure. But it's when you take a step back and you go, actually, I've done some pretty amazing things as well. So, and I think it comes back, I guess, from childhood conditioning of that we're not good enough, we're not enough, we're not smart enough, pretty enough, fast enough, thin enough, whatever it is, and it's just that perpetual sort of story that we tell ourselves. And, whereas I listen to your story and I just go, oh my God, that's amazing. And I think when we hear each other's stories, and I think that's what you do so beautifully through the Corporate Escapist, is, hearing other women's stories. And it's like, oh my God, she went through that. She's amazing. She went through that. She's amazing. And I just... love. I went totally down the rabbit hole of
Thank you.
And I highly recommend it to anyone who's looking for a bit of inspiration and is a bit over what's on TV right now. Go and read this. It's really, really good. And I think it sort of normalizes what we all live through, because it's all telling the story of our lived experiences. So amazing. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful conversation. And I just, I know the power of stories, but also, just normalizing, these conversations as well, because like as women, we need to start to come together again and start talking about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, I'm holding great hopes for the next generation, because I think we're better at it now, but they certainly are getting a better start than we ever did, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, it has been wonderful having you on the Hormone Hub. Thank you so much. And we'll put Christine's details and the details of the Corporate Escapists in the show notes. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Christine, for being a fabulous guest.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. You can head on over to the show notes at kyliepinwill.com/podcast, where you'll find all the links. Now, before we go, it would mean the world to me if you'd head on over to your favourite podcast channel, subscribe and leave a review. Don't forget to share it with your friends. Then stay tuned for next week's episode, and I can't wait to see you then.